There are billions of women passing through similar experiences all around the world, and for whatever reason, we often feel like we're alone. It's time to make a point of discussing these topics from a range of viewpoints. These conversations surpass age, race, location. They are relevant to women everywhere. Welcome to the She Word. Conversations that women rarely have, but really should. For those willing to change the world one step at a time. For those dreaming of sustainable living. For those striving to find a healthier balance. For those always believing. Browns and Viridian. Love the planet, love yourself. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the She Word, conversations that women rarely have but really should. And this conversation is all about women, pregnancy and postpartum. And this show is going to be a real tough one for me not to cry through. As a non-parent, the She Word has given me a completely new appreciation of what it's like to be a mum and respect to every mum who goes through this journey. But this is also going to be an emotional show because there's two guests on this show who are mums for the first time and are both very good friends of mine and a new friend of mine as well. And both of these ladies' stories have really touched my heart. Maxine Attard, what can I say? On the 17th of March, gonna cry, we put out a show that was intended in my mind to be about women in the theatre. But when I contacted you and I said, let's talk about women in the theatre, you said to me, can we talk about my most recent miscarriage? And that, I've gone goosey bumpy. I'm sorry, it's going to be emotional for me. But that show touched tens of thousands of women within just hours. Women getting in touch with myself, with Vintage, with yourself, and just thanking us for actually having this really open and honest conversation. And now today, just a few days away from Mothering Sunday, you are here as a mum of a 12-week-old baby. Yeah. Our wonderful baby James. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay. I'm going to get you to fill in the gaps. Emily Micallef, who you've made your home here in Malta. Yeah. You've been here how many years now?
10.
10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Married to Wayne Micallef of Firelight.
Yes.
You've also got your own very incredible personal journey, which I've had the privilege of sharing with you because you're one of my best friends. And you're also going to be celebrating Mother's Day this Sunday. I'm so excited.
You're going to get me emotional.
No, we're not. Where are the tissues? And Rebecca Mizzi. Now, Rebecca, you got in touch with me and you said to me, I would really like to be part of your She Word series because you are from Positive Birth Malta and you wanted to really drive home positive attitude towards birthing and everything that surrounds that. You are also a mum and you are a midwife. And all of this, as I mentioned, this is amazing because this is all kind of really brand new to me. I've got 3 very good friends who are going through this whole experience. So it's thanks to these people that I even know what postpartum means. So I'm going to get you to fill in the gaps in that just a second. Max, first of all, I've left out a huge gap there. But from your point of view, where has your journey taken you and brought to you as by way of an introduction? Where are you today?
Right. Today, well, you said it. Today, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I am a mom. Yes, I have a baby boy. His name is James. Oh my gosh.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we didn't get 5 minutes into the show.
Okay. But yeah, it's super emotional because I came on the show first time to speak about the miscarriage. And then I came on the second show in my second trimester, I remember. I don't even think I had announced, where are the tissues?
We'll get some. But
tissues and a makeup artist, please.
You said to me on that show afterwards, you said to me, I'm pregnant. And you didn't announce it. And I said, I know. There was something about you. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. When was that? What was that?
I think that was the third show of the She Word.
No, but I came on. Oh, yes, of course. Because I came on to speak about that journey. Yes. And I was pregnant. And then I announced, yes, exactly. And you knew. But you had met me somewhere, something. There was something. You knew somehow. That was really weird. So, yes. And then the second time I came, the first time I came on the She Words, I was talking about the journey and from a different perspective, obviously. It wasn't so fresh. And obviously I was pregnant at the time. So it had a very different feeling. And then here I am now, mummy to baby James. He's almost 12 weeks old. My first Mother's Day, just mind-blowing. Like, as you can tell, look at me, I'm a total mess. But yeah, I'm in the middle of, not even the middle, I'm in the beginning of postpartum. So I'm really grateful to be here to speak about both pregnancy and postpartum.
Well, I'm super excited because we also had the parenting show with Tamara Webb and Melissa
and
Denise,
that.
and which was a great show. But women wanted to talk about this whole pregnancy and postpartum episode and childbirth episode. And of course, as I mentioned, I don't have kids. So for me, it is all brilliantly new. And I vicariously live my parenting experience through you. So I can hand back any child that you give me, which is brilliant. But it's phenomenally, I mean, I am going to try and keep it together because it is so emotional that this whole experience, this whole She Word came about from that show on the 17th of March last year. And so many women, to date, 500,000 people have seen this show on Facebook. We've had 30,000 views on YouTube at least. And it's been an incredible experience just for people to be able to talk about it. So thank you. So we're going to come to that whole breaking down pregnancy, postpartum, childbirth in just a second. Ems. Hello. Fill in the gaps because I introduced you very briefly. Where are you from, first of all?
I'm from Wisconsin in the United States, but been living in Malta for 10 years, been married for 10 years as well. So, and I mean, you've been part of our journey, my journey, from the very beginning of coming here into motherhood. And you just saying just a few minutes before we started the show, talking about Mothering Sunday, and it like dawned on me, oh yeah, that's going to be my first Mother's Day. That's just blew my mind. I hadn't even been thinking about it. So a little bit of my story. My husband and I started trying to conceive. Well, now it's more than 7 years, but we had tried for 7 years, went down the IVF route and all the things before you even get to IVF, right? So lots and lots of treatments, lots of surgeries, all sorts of things. And we have 5 embryos at the moment, actually, frozen away. It was our second round of IVF, fertilizing, because we'd been through a whole round before that, but it didn't result in anything, except for maybe a couple chemical pregnancies, things like that. But this last time around, we had to stop treatment because they found a large cyst in one of my fallopian tubes. So this was just days before the embryo was supposed to be transferred. And I had to have surgery to have my fallopian tube removed and all the emotions that goes with that. And like 2 months later, right before I was about to start, I went into the IVF clinic, was going to start preparing for the next transfer, and things didn't happen as they were supposed to. I was like waiting for things to come along with my cycle, and it turned out I was pregnant naturally. So it was just a really wild experience. And yeah, so that's where we are today. So I have my husband and I have a little boy, Mason. He's 7 months old.
Which is amazing. And I was saying just before we came to this show, you came round, I'd had a really bad day, and you came round and we'd been hoping and praying and talking about, you having a family. And Ems walks in and I'm like, do you want a glass of wine? And she said, no, I can't have one for 8 months. And I bawled my eyes out.
It like took you a minute. You're like, huh? What?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And it like dawned on you. Yeah.
There was a moment where I was like, huh? What?
You saying no to a glass of wine? What?
Yeah, exactly. And then that happened. So I'm really excited because you are also a new mum, 2 new mums. Yeah. This is your first Mother's Day coming up. But I want to find out all about this whole pregnancy, postpartum. Rebecca, I have a newfound respect for midwifery.
You.
Just not even through this show, but a friend of mine is training to be a midwife as well. And you are a midwife, but you also are from Positive Birth Malta.
Yes.
And you're a mum. So fill in all the details, because that's so cool.
Yes, so motherhood first. I'm a mom of two. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son, Amelia and Arthur. So I'm quite fresh with the pregnancy and postpartum myself. But of course, from the professional point of view, I've been a midwife for 10 years. In 2017, together with 3 of my colleagues, we set up, who are also mothers as well, we set up Positive Birth Malta. It started as a branch of the Positive Birth movement, which was international. And it's all basically about spreading positivity around pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. We do a lot of lobbying and a lot of advocacy for local families. We hold free to attend meetups where people come and share experiences, help each other out. There's very much a sense of community. And we do this all voluntarily because we're very passionate about getting positive stories out there. Unfortunately, like the birth especially, but pregnancy, birth, postpartum world is very I think, media and maybe even stories women between themselves, it's usually quite negative. So by having a movement that's going to share positive stories and share positivity, it's really has, so far we've helped many couples locally.
No doubt you have. And I'm thrilled. You contacted me and said, I think the She Word needs this. And I said, absolutely it does. Because I have a feeling that pregnancy and postpartum and childbirth is one of these mystical women things, right? It's like miscarriage. It's like a menopause and a whole bunch of other experiences that we as women may or may not go through. Some of them we're more than likely to go through, whether that be getting your period or whether it be menopause or whatever. And we never talk about it. And yet, this has been happening. I keep saying this has been happening for millennia. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to open, because you, Rebecca, you sit in a very unique position. And I'm going to keep referring back to this because you're a midwife of 10 years, which means you must have been an expert when you had your children. And I want to know if the hype really fitted the expectation. So I'm going to come back to you about that. But I'm going to start with you, Max, because I guess what I want to come to is really, what did you expect from pregnancy? You get pregnant. I know for you as well, there was a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
But what did you expect from pregnancy? And also, were these kind of this word of postpartum trimester, this was all new. A mutual friend of ours, Tez, went through her pregnancy, and she shared that on a previous podcast I had. And I was really grateful for that because I was like, yay, I know what a trimester is. But what did you expect? Did you have in your head, this is what's going to happen?
No, I have to say, no, I didn't. I think once I got pregnant and I got through the first trimester, because I was extremely anxious and extremely sick as well. So I was sort of in this 3 months of being horrendous, if not more, of being really, really unwell. Google was great.
Can I ask, okay, because for me or anybody who's not a parent, when you say sick, is it just the nausea? Is it just the throwing up, or is it more than that?
No, for me, it was nausea and throwing up. It was food aversions and any sort of smell. I think I'm sensitive to smells anyway, but then in my pregnancy, they were just heightened massively. So I'd smell the dustbin and I'd vomit, or I'd smell the cat food, the wet cat food, and I would go and throw up. Adrian had to do it. I just could not face feeding the cats. Or if somebody had BO or anything like that, I was just gagging constantly for 16 weeks, or I don't know how long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was really horrible. But then in the second trimester, I felt a lot better. I felt a lot better mentally, and I felt a lot better physically. And I started to enjoy the bump growing, and we got to know we were having a boy. So then I think I started Googling things to learn. I didn't know much about pregnancy beforehand, and I've had friends who've had babies, but it's just, I don't know. I suppose when you're in it, you want to know more, perhaps. I don't know. I think, so that's when I started learning about postpartum and birth and all of that. And then, to be fair, it was my third trimester at the very end, maybe towards 30-something weeks, where I was like, okay, let's start thinking about birth. And actually preparing for this baby to come, and what do I need, and things like the perineum massage and this and that.
What?
Yeah. There's so many things.
What is that?
Okay, so I think the midwife should explain what that is. And not me.
Do you want to? I don't know.
Like publicly explain something wrong. Like let the midwife explain what that is.
Becca, what did she just say?
Perineal massage.
Okay.
So basically,
Oh my word! Everyone's like, "Oh, let's not talk about this one." What is this?
No, it's really just really glamorous.
Yeah.
Such a glamorous part of pregnancy. There's so much glamour in pregnancy and in birth and in postpartum. It's just exactly what you see on posters.
The
and
glow
magazines
is just
and films.
nausea and everything.
Oh yeah, no.
What's this perineum massage?
perineal massage is one of the ways that you can prepare the perineum before birth.
What's your perineum?
So your perineum is the skin and between your vagina and your anus.
Which
that's-
can tear
That's
or which can be cut.
so not substantial, but some, especially with first-time mothers, there is the risk of having tears or lacerations in the perineal area. And one of the ways that you can reduce that risk is by performing perineal massage after 34, 35 weeks, a couple of times a week, up until birth.
Sorry, you see my face there.
Yeah.
This is
No,
a
but
new
that was
one to
my
me.
face as well.
You're serious?
Yeah, I had no idea. Well, I always heard, because she ripped and she had loads of stitches. But again, once you're in it, then you're like, oh, right, this is going to happen. So there's no backing out now. It's one way now. This baby has to come out. So then I'm glad I didn't spend the whole pregnancy worrying and planning and this and that. But I got to my 30 weeks and I was like, okay, I need to be a bit more aware. And I'm really glad you have your what do you call it, an NGO, would you say?
We're not a registered NGO, but
Okay.
we consider ourselves a movement.
A movement.
Or a
So
community.
the movement and the community that you are setting up is super helpful, because I had to go elsewhere. So I went on to podcasts or Instagram pages of midwives and things like that to learn about this stuff. And things are different, whether it's the UK or America or Australia. Things are different to how things happen in Malta. So some research I did not apply to the hospital and to the way things were done here.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have doulas and we don't, you know what I mean? So there's a lot
what?
of a doula.
I think I'm just going to be like the dictionary.
I love Max just
Just to
going.
be fair.
I'm just going to look at you for all of
A doula is usually a woman, traditionally, who kind of helps and supports other women and families during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. They wouldn't be medically trained professionals, but they help out with things like education, breastfeeding, making sure mothers get extra rest, helping
do
out
we
even
not have
sometimes around the
them
house.
here?
See, this is an interesting point. Thank you for explaining. I have a feeling that Rebecca is just going to be our fountain of wisdom here throughout the show. Because Ems, you're American,
Yeah.
right? So, and you're in Malta.
Yeah.
So, when you came, what is it called, perineum massage? Did you ever heard of this?
No, I don't even remember how I even found out about it, but I remember calling my sister had just had a baby like a year before. So she was like my go-to.
But
Like,
she's
what
in the
about this? What
States,
about
right,
that?
right.
Yeah. But so I remember like YouTubing a video. I'm like, is this real? Do I really need to
Yeah.
do this? I'm scared. Like
Me too. I did
Yeah,
the
yeah,
YouTube
it's
thing. And,
scary.
like, I didn't. Yeah.
You know what's
everyone
happening?
is going to be Googling
Yeah,
right
everybody's
now.
stopping this show right now and going, quick, how do you spell that perineum thing?
Yeah.
No, stick
but
with
that's
us. Stick
one
with
of
us.
the things, and it's just sort of where else were we meant to know this? As in, you go to the gynecologist and you have your checkup and stuff, and unless I don't know, in my case, unless I asked a question or whatever, it was just sort of, yes, baby's fine, ciao. So I got to the point in the third trimester where I wasn't sure what kind of birth I was going to have yet, because the baby was big. There was always a possibility of having a C-section, and an elected, like a planned C-section. But for many, many weeks, I was planning for a vaginal birth. I'm not going to say a natural birth because it annoys me, because I feel like a C-section is a natural birth. My baby was still
Oh,
born.
wow. And in Malta, 32% of women have a
C-sections.
C-section.
There you are.
32% of births are C-section.
And obviously some vaginal births end up in a C-section anyway.
Yeah.
So mine was planned. I obviously had a bit of, this is happening. So one of the things I remember was James's birthday was chosen by my gynecologist because she happened to be at the hospital on that day. Obviously, that's how I think about it. I was like, this is not, it's just really weird. I was like, oh, that's his birthday. And I thought, oh my God, that's not natural, but there we are. But yes, I say that C-sections are still natural. It's still a birth and you can still prepare for them. I feel I did lots of preparing, even though nothing went the way I thought it would. So yeah, where are we meant to know this stuff about massages?
Well, I mean,
and
this
things
is the whole reason we're having the show. This is the whole reason we're having this discussion, and this is why I'm so excited that Rebecca is here.
Me too. Q&A afterwards.
You know what I mean? Before we come to Rebecca in a second, coming back to you, so you find that you're pregnant. You've been waiting for 7 years for this experience. Was pregnancy easy? Was it what you expected? And like you said, you had your older sister. I mean, sorry, I'm just going to come back to what you said.
Yeah.
Millennia. None of us would be here if someone didn't give birth to us, right?
Yeah.
So women have been doing this forever.
Yeah.
Why do we... Anyway, no, come back to that in a minute. But you're asking your sister. I mean, is that the case for you? How was your pregnancy?
Well, I was very fortunate. I had a pretty straightforward pregnancy, and
You didn't get the nausea?
I had a little bit of nausea, but mostly I was just exhausted that first trimester. Like you feel like I need to lie down now. Like in the office at work, I'd be like, I think I'm just gonna go lie down on the sofa for a little bit, take a little break, because it just overwhelms you. So mostly that's what I experienced. But I think only one time got sick at the side of the road, had to pull over, you know. There was a farmer in a field looking at me like, what's going on? But I was really fortunate. Had very little nausea and was pretty well the entire pregnancy. I was also you probably remember this, very oddly calm about the whole thing. And maybe that's just because maybe it's because of the many years of things that I'd gone through to get to that point where I was already at this point where hey, this is what I've been hoping for. And I had, maybe thanks to God, I had no anxiety throughout the entire thing. I was just, this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm just going to take it one day at a time. I didn't even start thinking about birth or anything. In fact, I didn't even want to. People were like, "Do you want to do classes? Do these?" I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to know. I'll figure. I wanted to know the most important things, like what kind of medication I'd be willing to take or things like that. And I would ask. I mean, not just my sister, but my mother and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law is there are a lot of women in my life who are very supportive and were there through me answering my questions throughout the entire process. But so I had a very calm pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect, so I just kind of took it one day at a time.
Can I come back to something that Max said? Because this is kind of interesting. You were saying, Max, when you did your research, that you were looking at different, if you look online, of course, we're going to get information from different places around the world. Did you ever find that your sister was saying something who is in the US that here in Malta, you're like, that's not how we do it, or that's not available, or, there was some changes there? Yeah,
it's even the hospital, the birthing experience, I think, is different in the U.S. Well, maybe it's because sometimes the hospitals are almost like hotels in some of these instances. So, which, it is probably why it's very expensive. I was
going to say, you pay for it.
Yeah. So a lot of it was referring to them, and then referring to my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law here in Malta who would okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to prepare for? What's the actual reality? So there were some differences. I think in Malta, there's less focus on having a birth plan. Yes, and that's not something you discuss with a doctor beforehand. You might ask questions about it, but you don't, in the States, you come with a plan. And this is what you're going to do. And you hand that to your midwife.
I mean, and some women just want to go in with it. I think my gynecologist had told me, you can plan as much as you like.
That's true.
But there's nothing you can do if something happens. And I was like, yeah, you're so right. That's so true. You can go in with this birth plan and what you want. And then you're 15 hours in and just give me the epidural, so I mean, you can plan
absolutely.
that. And she was so right, because I ended up having, like I said, the C-section, even though I had friends of mine who had a wonderful experience, like really calm and loved it. Mine was horrible. And everything I was scared of happened. So probably I manifested that, or I was too anxious. I don't know. So she was right. She was so right. You can plan, you can do, but at the end of the day, it's just going to happen.
And even our friend Tez. I mean, Tez has spoken very openly about her experience. She had planned and everything was going really, really well. And then suddenly she finds out there's something. She finds out that her umbilical cord, instead of being 60 centimeters long, is 20. So ends up having an emergency C. Now, before we come to the guru, we're now going to call Rebecca the guru. I want to ask both of you guys, because we're going to stick with pregnancy for the time being, and then we're going to move on to childbirth. It's all getting interesting. Is there anything about pregnancy that you've been looking on Google, you've been talking to people, you've been talking to your family, but is there anything that took you by surprise that no one had told you about, or just no one had referenced? Is there any single thing that you're like, blimey, I didn't think that was going to happen?
I think the constant comments on when you start to grow. So I was like, why are we fat shaming pregnant women?
Sorry, what?
So I didn't show for quite some time. Well, I did, but not big. I got big right at the end. And there was constant comments, positive comments most of the time, which were, oh, you hardly show, or oh, you're so small. And I, as an anxious person, would go home and go, I hope everything's okay.
Yeah,
I hope
of course.
this baby's growing. Why don't I show? I'm 5.5 months. I would have these thoughts.
You wanted to look pregnant as well,
I was like,
right?
this baby should be growing. My tummy should be growing. Why am I not growing? And I was, and I also kind of wear baggy things anyway. So it was a bit like, oh gosh. And then when I did get that bump, something I wasn't expecting, I just never felt more beautiful ever. Like, I absolutely loved it. And then you speak to some women who hate it. So it's amazing that everybody has such a different experience. But yeah, the comments, everyone feels the need to comment. And it's just say that just say you're glowing and you look lovely. And that's nice. That's nice to hear. But then when some fat person tells you, oh my God, you're exploding. I'm like, yeah, I'm growing a human. So what is your excuse?
Yeah,
that's what I said. Literally, I would want to just, and the hormones come out.
Okay, so let me ask you a practical question before we move on to Emily and then come to the guru. Because when Tamara was on the show about parenting, she said something that I've taken on board and that I am really trying to make sure that I stick to. She said, when you meet a new mum, don't ask them how the baby is, ask them how they are.
Yeah.
She said, ask them how they are first, because it's important. And then ask how the rest of everything else is going. How are you? That's what she was saying. So in your instance, obviously people want to comment on the fact that you're showing, or how you would have preferred people to say you're glowing.
Yeah, just a compliment. I don't see why there's this need to comment about how big you are. Big, what do you mean? You're exploding. And oh my God, you're so big and you're about to pop, and all these, which have slightly negative connotations to them. And it goes into this whole sort of body positivity, body image thing. And luckily, I didn't suffer with body image issues or anything like that. But I know people who have. So the minute somebody says, oh my God, how fat your face is getting, it might just be okay for you to say, because you think, oh, you're pregnant. Obviously, your face is going to get fat. But for that person who had an eating disorder 10 years ago, that's not okay.
Wow.
So you just need to watch our mouth. Just don't comment. And if you're going to say something nice. Why would you say that?
We're going to come to this in postpartum as well, because there's a lot of this is tied into postpartum and recovery. Ems, anything of your journey that took you by surprise that you were, and thank you, Max, thank you for that. I'm going to bear this in mind. But anything that
it took me by surprise. Well, just kind of what you said. I think I was surprised at how much I loved being pregnant. I really did. I reached a point where I was just like, I loved having the belly. I loved, picking out maternity clothes, and I really just enjoyed it more than I thought. I thought, like I mentioned earlier, that I didn't have a lot of anxiety and I was pretty calm through it. I really thought that I would be much more anxious or worried about this, worried about that. worried about the appointments and how they were going to go. But I think that's what surprised me most, is just how much I was able to enjoy it and soak it all in, and all that's the surprising part, the movements that you feel. And I know some women don't feel it as much, and that's even a point of anxiety for some women. But I remember, like, and I sent you
I'm
videos.
smiling.
That's what you're
I got
thinking
regular
about,
photographs of your belly moving.
yeah, just seeing him, like, going crazy, rolling and flipping and moving around, and it's so wild. It's unbelievable.
Just
really,
relating to that,
honestly.
one thing that happened with you that surprised me was that I would go to see Ems and she would grab my hand and like shove it into her belly, and I'm like, be careful with him.
I used to have you like poke my stomach to get him moving,
wake
and you would.
up.
Yeah.
And I would
did all
lean
crazy
forward
things.
to her belly and I'd be like, listen, sweetness, we'll talk about
We're
this
so
when you're
sorry.
18. We'll have this conversation about what your mum made me do.
Just
so
keep poking
sorry.
him.
Rebecca, listen, there are two women here that are having their first experience, and both, I mean, beautiful that you really enjoyed pregnancy more than you thought you would, and Max is
loved
obviously smiling as well. But is this surprise? We talked about misinformation or not enough information. Is this kind of what the norm is? Is it normal that women do feel like they are surprised or they don't have enough information? Or not talking about what positive birth does, because obviously that's playing a role, but obviously you're there because there's this lack of information. How can we have lack of information when we are all here because someone gave birth to us?
Well, I suppose families have gotten smaller. Women didn't used to talk so much openly about things like perineal massage and, birth plans and things like this very openly until recently. So it's also a very individual experience as well. But I think what's come out so far already, because literally you've given me loads to talk about already, but what really shines through is the need for support from other women. Like talking about family, talking about the need for more information, more education, and I think that's a really strong point of the work we do as midwives. Most people don't know this, but the word midwife actually means with woman. So that's the translation of the name of our profession. So I had a lot of education, a lot of empowering. There's no right or wrong way to do things. So, for example, we've already touched on a lot of things like birth plans, birth preferences. I personally like to feel that everyone has a birth plan. Not everyone writes it, not everyone presents it, but everyone's spoken to someone who's had a baby and thought to themselves, oh, I would like that for myself, or I wouldn't like that for myself. And the whole formulation of a plan or preferences is all mainly about education, not about plan. In fact, plan might not be the best word for it.
Preference, maybe.
Preferences, but it's really a process of educating yourself during the pregnancy and finding out your options and finding out your choices, because there are choices and options as you go along. This is, it's not, we've already mentioned like the hospital setting. You are not there because you're sick. You're there, if anything, because you're healthy, and there are choices, and it's a life transition that is going to impact the rest of your life and the rest of your family's life.
I'm going to pick up on two things that you said before I forget. You said back there that we are living in a different world. As soon as you said that, it resonated to me, because you're right, because the whole birthing experience, maybe families were more supportive in the past, or maybe that was that infrastructure of women surrounding women who are giving birth, and we are separated from our families. We're three people are sitting around the table who are not with their mums for one reason or another. We are not close to our mums, and so that kind of hit me like a slap round the face. You're absolutely right, which means that this sort of artificial family, or how can I put it, this created family, is even more important. You mentioned about this support, and one thing that sort of struck me when you said that, what about women in this country and any country that don't have that support network? I'm assuming that's why you're doing what you're doing with positive birth, and that you would be there for mums to be maybe first-time mums or young mums or older mums, I mean, that's got to be as scary as anything because you would be their family.
I mean, there is a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And in a lot of today's world, and if you go on social media, everyone's like, where's the village? So, but I think it's really about building a village as well. I moved abroad when I had an 8-week-old baby, my first baby. I had to move abroad because of my husband's career. And I built a village. I attended mom and baby groups. I found out where my local public health nurse was. And thankfully, luckily, I was built a little community of moms who were ready to help me, and vice versa. And it was a very reciprocal, beautiful thing, because a lot of people live, yes, far away from family, and it's not easy.
Yes, and you have to be willing to accept help, which is tough. Personally, for me, it was very tough and is very tough. And like you said, you have to create it yourself, which is really interesting. So if you
At the
sit
same
there at
time,
home on your
exactly.
own, you're not going to get that
But
help.
Rebecca just said, where's the village? And you and I just shot a look at each other because I don't think I've ever heard anyone define it.
Love that.
Quite,
Where's the
yeah, where's the
village?
village, right? Where's the village? And you have a very close community where
Yeah, I
you live
do.
because
Yeah.
your family all live in the same block.
We do.
Did you find that was the support that you needed? Did you miss your mum? Because your mum's in the States.
Oh, I missed my mom terribly, of course, throughout the whole process. My mom, my sister-in-law as well. But even though I missed having them there physically with me, and I know they really wish they could have been there, especially those first weeks after having a baby when you need a lot of support. You really do, because you just are exhausted. But even though they were far away, they were still there. Like because we talk all the time, we connect all the time. But especially my in-laws, they're amazing. My mother-in-law was there every day. My sister and my sister-in-law as well. They would come over and watch Mason so I could have a bath, or so I had a lot of support, and that made all the difference. I can't
your
imagine
village.
how alone I would have felt otherwise, And of course, not just them, but my husband too. He was incredible. So yeah, you do need the support.
It's really opening my eyes to women of all these different circumstances. And I think you, Rebecca, are shortly on your way to becoming my most incredible hero. And, at the moment, because of what you're doing with Positive Birth, I want to come back to moving on from the pregnancy to the actual birthing experience. We've talked about planning for it. We've talked about, a preference for it. And we've talked about the fact that it might not turn out quite as you want it to. And I think one of the other things that really, when I was researching for this show, is that the mean age of women in the EU giving birth for their first child is gradually increasing. And according to the statistics in 2019, is at 29 and a half years old. Now, that might not apply to Malta, but if that's across the EU, for instance, I know where I was at 29, going on 30. We're not spring chickens anymore, right? So something that's going to dramatically affect you physically is going to have a much more long-term impact than if you're kind of, 20 years old and you're running marathons and can jump back and all this sort of thing. So coming back to childbirth, because we're going to walk through this in a step-by-step. The childbirth experience, you said, Max, that you were planning, and I love the way that you have said that your C-section is not a natural birth. And again, if we've been doing this for millennia, then we've been having C-sections one way or another for millennia, because there've always been these issues. That must be the case. I've watched films from, no, I'm just kidding. But there must have been in the
They
past.
probably would have sadly died, I mean, if we didn't have C-sections and emergency C-sections.
We're looking at the guru.
Yes, guru.
Well,
tell
I
us.
saw Robin Hood, the film, and there was
Oh,
a
I love that
C-section.
film.
Yeah, there's a C-section in that film, right? Yeah. Anyway,
So-
moving on.
The first thing I'd like to say is that I generally don't advise people to watch TV programs or anything on TV while they're pregnant that has to do with birth, because it's
No.
always very dramatic.
Hey, it's so true.
It's always very dramatic, very quick, and in
Terrifying.
reality, it's
not.
not like that.
I think that's the first thing when going back to something we said a while ago. Like I thought
With
giving
media,
birth was on your back, legs in that position, you push, baby comes out. And then learning there are 3 different
because
stages
that's what
towards
we've been
childbirth.
shown for so many.
And then that's not actually one of the best positions for a vaginal birth. No, because it's against gravity. And all of this, I was learning, going, why have I had this picture painted in my head of what childbirth is, like a vaginal childbirth, when it's not like that?
No. Yes. Television, media, it kind of really dramatizes birth unnecessarily. And that's probably where a lot of fear stems from in men and in women and in men, because even dads come to birth with a certain degree of perhaps anxiety or fear because of things that we've been told, things that we tell each other, and that kind of, and what we watch. And nowadays, even you've got to add on to that social media as well.
So you're saying if you're pregnant, do not watch House. Do not watch what's it
Call
called?
the Midwife.
ER,
Call the
Call the
Midwife.
Midwife, or
It's
any
good
of
birth
that.
control.
Just stay. Let's just scrub TV. If you're pregnant, don't watch TV.
And don't
go
let
on
people
socials.
tell you their horror stories. Oh my God, my birth was 24 hours long and I ripped and I was like, please, I am weeks away. Like my water
It's not
could
good
break.
timing,
Please don't
yeah.
tell me these things. I don't
Great
want to
advice
know.
coming from
Yeah.
Rebecca. Right?
Unfortunately, some people, I think people either do it because it's therapeutic for them or they feel like they're forewarning you, but it's really not helpful at all. And then, unfortunately, on the flip side of that, women who have had a positive birth experience feel like almost like they've cheated the system and they shouldn't be talking about their positive birth experience. They find it maybe difficult because if you're in a room with other women who have had negative or traumatic experiences, then it kind of looks like, oh, well, I did it with no pain relief and it was lovely and I'd do it again. And there are some women who have had those kind of experiences who shy away from sharing their positive birth story. And that means that the negative gets a lot of hype, and that's what we keep circulating in communities. And that's why women, unfortunately, and men, as I said, come to birth with a level of fear and anxiety. And
But isn't there more information should be shared, whether it be, let's put it as a factual. For instance, a friend of mine had her baby. She's a number of years ago, and we sat down after a couple of years, and I said to her, how was it? How really was it? And she said, they don't ever tell you that you need to go to the bathroom beforehand, because when you're pushing, you're going to poop yourself. And I was like, what? And they don't tell you that once you've given birth, you also then have to give birth to the afterbirth if it's a vaginal birth experience. And I must have been in my early 40s at this point. And granted, I'm not a parent, but just knowing this, I know it's not positive or negative. It's just
Knowing.
Knowledge.
Yeah. I have to say, I went through most of my pregnancy not knowing what the placenta actually was.
What is the placenta?
Do we still know?
No.
Like it's still just this.
I mean, I
it's
heard it
this
on a
thing.
podcast, so I get very scared of what I'm listening to. It's not actually, there's so much information out there. What is actually factual? But is it an actual organ? It's an organ. And then that you have to give birth to that. And I just these facts, which my body created and managed to grow, and I don't even know what the F is happening.
It's so true. It really is.
I'm going to just jump in there
Saved
for
you
a
a
second.
quack.
We can quack away. It's fine. Jumping in there though, and just from the positive, I mean, whether you have a difficult pregnancy or a difficult birth, or whether it's all positive and natural, the very fact that there are 3 women at this table who have created another life, to me, is amazing, incredible. It's mind-blowing. So anybody, whether they've had a positive birth or they've had challenges, should embrace the fact that they were able to and did give birth in the first place. No?
yes. I mean, for me, 10 years down the line, it's still something, miraculous and amazing every time I attend a birth. So that never fades away. Yes, as I said before, there are choices. There's definitely lack of education, and really and truly, I need to empower women and empower families about what their choices are, and education on what the process is. And
I'm understanding now better because of this lack of this village. You talked about where's the village, and I'm now getting my head around this whole idea of who your village is and where you get this information from. Coming back to you guys, I'm going to ask the same question. You're going first this
Yes,
time.
tell me.
What about pregnancy? What about childbirth? We talked about pregnancy. What about childbirth was the big surprise?
All of it. You hear stories, but you don't really know until you're experiencing it for yourself. So it's hard even to explain, like my mom would say, oh, you'll know when it's time, and you do, but you don't. You're like, is it time? Should I go to the hospital? Is it, all these things. It's, all of it was a total surprise. It really was. I didn't really. You don't really know what to expect until you're in it. I think
you and Wayne were super prepared. Wayne reads about everything.
Oh yeah, he did a lot of research about he did a lot of research of breathing for me, and then I would be because he's a singer, so I was like, I'm not going to have the mental wherewithal to remember how to breathe, so you be my breathing coach, and then during it, he would very calmly, you're breathing wrong. Try breathing like that. No, but not like I was wrong. He was being very delicate because he knew I wasn't, what the pain I was in. But and then he would try to tell me how to do it, and then I would be like, "Oh yes, thank you." And then when it came to do it, you don't remember anything. You're kind of in. I mean, I didn't take. I had gas and I had an epidural, so I wasn't taking other medications that made you really loopy, but you kind of are in this surreal kind of state. And then we had an emergency during Mason's birth. So he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck and he was stuck. I had been pushing for so long, and it went from just the midwife and my husband and I in the room to a whole team and like that. And it was really, really scary in that moment. But I had a Vertus delivery, which is where they suction his head and they pulled him out. And in the thick of it, I was thinking it was, is it my fault? Am I not pushing hard enough? I don't know how I can push harder, but it's just a really surreal experience. And it was really scary. And they took him away immediately. So I didn't even really get to hold him. And my husband Wayne went with him and spent the first 2 hours I didn't get to see him for 2 hours. So that was a huge shocker for me. Like you said, you prepare, but you don't really, it all goes kind of out the window under those circumstances. So, but thank God he was fine. He was, and.
But coming back to what Rebecca just said a minute ago about positive births and scary stories, we have just had a story that was not an easy birth. But to me, the outcome is you still had a beautiful boy.
Oh, yeah.
And
I would do it all over again like that,
Well, the thing is, everyone's interpretation is different as well. So I learned very early on, even as a student midwife, that what was textbook and for me maybe on paper looked like, oh, she had a really good birth, could still be a traumatic experience for that mother. And on the contrary, someone who's had an emergency cesarean section, a ventouse delivery, and things that on paper you think, oh my goodness, I should really go maybe speak to that mother tomorrow, make sure she's okay. And she'd have a really positive experience of it. It's not just, it's very individual. Everything about pregnancy, labor, and definitely postpartum is very individual. And sometimes it's more, I think, the people you have around you and the way they speak to you and the way things are explained to you and whether you're given choices that will make her experience positive or negative, rather than actually what happened.
See, my same friend who told me about pooping yourself when you give birth is now training to be a midwife for exactly that, because the only single reason that she wants to be a midwife is so that she can help create that positivity that you are doing through Positive Birth Malta, surrounding the whole experience. Max, biggest surprise with childbirth?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
No, I literally don't even know where to start. Because I had a planned C-section, I thought it was going to be great and calm. And like you said, it's so individual. So I had definitely 2 of my closest friends had very, very nice experiences. And so I went in anxious but ready. And the night before at hospital, I was so calm. That night I was calm. That morning I started to get a bit like excited. Oh my gosh, this is my baby's birthday and like all this. And then Adrian came and it was time to go down after the midwife. This was surprising. One of, bless her, she couldn't find, I had to have a catheter in, and she couldn't manage to put, this is a bit TMI, I think, but she couldn't manage to put the catheter in properly. And so I was already a bit like tense because it was not a very comfortable thing to be happening. And then halfway through this sort of legs up in the air, very, very gracious, what's the word? Graceful procedure. She goes, I'll say it in English, I know you from somewhere. You were on television. I'm there, like,
with your legs in the air.
Student midwife there, everything open to the world. I was like, yes. Can we get to the part where you manage this, please? Bless her. So that was quite funny. Then I had the injection. What's it called? The spinal injection, which numbed me from the waist down. Everything was just so surreal. That's it. I was in the OR, had no idea that this was the room I was going to have the operation. I thought I was going to be wheeled somewhere else. So then my gynae came in and she put a hand on my shoulder and she's like, we're going to start soon. And I thought, what? Here, this is it? I don't know. I was just so out of it. I felt so anxious about it all. And then I think, to be honest, the moment that I think something surprising as well is you still feel everything. You feel sensations. You don't feel pain. I thought I'd feel nothing. I thought I'd just be lying there and then this baby would be pulled out and then that was it. But I felt everything tugging and pulling and tugging and pulling. It's like a washing machine in your stomach. It's just so strange, but there's no pain. So it's really weird. And you can't, if you try to wiggle your toes, you can't. And it's just the most weird. Oh, I don't know. It's very scary for me. But then once I was like, okay, I'm here now and Adrian's here and I was talking to my gynae. I can still hear her. I drove the anesthetist. Absolutely mental, 100%. If you're watching this, I'm really sorry. I did apologize that day as well. I was sick and I was panicking and there was a lot happening. So she's an angel. And she kept me calm and just kept reassuring me that I was okay. I had a lovely midwife who managed to arrange her shift that she could be there for me. And she's the first person who held my son and she changed him. Lexi, thank you. I love you. So there was just so many amazing things about it. But I was in this panic and then suddenly they said, the baby's coming. And then you hear the cry. And I was like, I don't know if I felt winded because they pulled him out and he was 4.2 kilos or if my breath was taken away from this amazing, oh my God, like. And then I was like, the only thing I could think was, is he okay? Is he okay? Is he okay? And the other anesthetist was like, yes, he's crying. He's fine. That's a good, that's a good sign. He's absolutely fine. And then they brought him to me and I saw this baby for the first time, which is, you can never in a million years with all the words in the world explain that feeling. And then because it's cold in the room, they have to take him away and dress him up and stuff. But there were so many negatives and so many positives. And I think looking back now, it's nearly 3 months and you forget. Even the pain, now when we're going to the postpartum, that's a whole other chapter. But everything, I've already forgotten that fear and that worry. And it just is all worth it. That's surprising. I think I thought I'd remember it and it would, I can talk about it.
It does fade.
I think we wouldn't have more babies.
Yeah,
I think that's by nature's way of being like,
even your memory fades a bit.
So your nature's way of saying you have to go through this, but don't worry, you're not going to remember it. So you have more babies and the world can keep going.
we're going to move. You just very, very wonderfully moved into postpartum for me. This new word that I had no idea about. And I saw recently on a social media post, this young woman had said, nobody told me about postpartum. Nobody told me that my body would take this long to recover. And I think this is where also, Rebecca, you're going to have wisdom for us, because as I was researching this part about postpartum, different Dr. Google, different sources said it may take 6 weeks to get over your pregnancy, to go through postpartum, and it might take up to 18 months. And again, you just very rightly mentioned that it's individual to each woman. Now, before we come to you, Guru Expert, I'm just going to ask, because we've got 2 ladies, 3 months and 7 months. So you are still in postpartum, or are you out of postpartum, Alice?
I
Do you want me to clarify that?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
So
Am I?
I'm just going to jump back to birth for a second, because that's like an area I'm very passionate about. It is something very surreal. And recently, actually, a friend of mine who is expecting her 3rd baby, and I was with her through pregnancy and postpartum with her first 2, she said to me, it's not something painful, she said to me, because the other pains that I've had in my life, I remembered them. I can tell you how they felt, but this was different. And in fact, I told her, it's powerful, isn't it? And she said, yes, this is something powerful, not something painful. And again, we've been told for millennia now that this is something painful, and maybe it's time to start looking at it as something powerful. And I think even like maybe the patriarchy and the patriarchal society has given us the term pain rather than the term powerful, because if we considered all mothers powerful, that would change the world. So that's like
I keep coming back. No, I keep coming back to a comment that Mariella Demek made as a throwaway comment in the show about menopause, and I don't think she really knew how powerful that what she said was at the time. She just said, women just get on with it. Women just get on with it. And I think that's why we don't acknowledge how, as me as a non-mum, I have paramount respect for you ladies. I'm like, in awe of you. You have created a new life. And having gone through this vicariously with you and with Tez, I'm just, whoa. And it is powerful, particularly as a person who hasn't had kids, can't have kids, will not have kids. I have so much respect for you guys. It is powerful. And because women just do it, they just accept it. And I think that's exactly the dialogue that needs to change, and more acknowledgement given to the fact that it is this power.
And now, like, onto postpartum, like, this idea of, yes, you get up and you get on with it. In a few weeks' time, you'll be back at work. We expect you to bounce back to your postpartum body, back into your postpartum jeans. No one tells you you're going to be wearing those maternity leggings for a good couple of months, and they will continue to be the most comfortable leggings.
And then you'll pick them up again for menopause.
So... and again, yes, postpartum on textbook is 6 to 8 weeks. That's the definition that we learn. And then we realize that actually, the more women speak about postpartum and the more awareness we realize that actually postpartum is the first year. And then occasionally some people say, listen, postpartum is lifelong. If your body has gone through pregnancy, changes of pregnancy, birthed your baby, then some of that is going to stay, that's going to stay with you. And you've got another person, obviously, now in your life to take care of and look out for the rest of their life as well. So we can take it as far as saying it's lifelong. This postpartum period.
Wow.
Now, obviously, you can either look at it...
Sorry, I'm just looking at Em's going like this. Really?
You can look at it as something...
She's grabbing the glass of wine there. She's like, yeah.
You can look at it as something negative and medical, and, obviously there's... the bleeding eventually stops, the breastfeeding eventually stops whenever mom and baby decide on that. But you can look at it as something more on a spiritual and emotional and psychological level as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we talk about all the different shared experiences, because like you said earlier, some people have really positive experiences and some people have very negative, and some women are suffering through post-traumatic stress or postpartum depression because of the experiences that they've had. And if we all just kind of embraced each other's experiences and talked about them, and I can understand someone who is suffering through, you know, depression following, and they can also be happy for me that maybe I'm not walking through that experience. We just, you know, support each other in the experiences that we have, and even try to lift each other up from you know, what we're going through. Yeah.
But you're 7 months. Do you feel that now you're moving out of postpartum? Or because one thing that really surprised me was that if it takes a minimum of 3 months for your body to recover, 3 months is the maternity leave that we have here in Malta. So you're expected to go back to work the minute that supposedly your body has recovered. I mean, that's insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I felt well enough to return to work. I did not feel like myself before birth or before pregnancy. Like even to today, you know, I'm not how I was physically before, and things are just different. You know, things are different. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's hard to return back to work if that's the path for some. But yeah, you have to give yourself a lot of grace, I think, and like, you know, be good, be kind to yourself. Like,
How
it's
easy is that?
okay. It's hard, especially. Well, it can be hard because, I mean, I went back to the office. I'm like, I don't want to buy a whole new wardrobe. Like, what am I gonna wear? I remember like the week before, like laying out clothes. Like, this doesn't fit. This fits. That, you know, that's all part of, you know, the
Absolutely.
process that you go through. But and you can't take it out on yourself. But then you know, my sister-in-law said, she's like, even I was thinking like, oh, I want to start getting back to exercising, which is good if you feel well enough to start doing that. That's good, even like mentally. But you know, take time, because listen to your body. You know, do what you can do.
There's an amazing American influencer that I follow. I think you follow her as well. And she has been speaking about being nice to your body once you've given birth. She's just had her baby. She didn't think she was going to have a baby. She gave birth, and she was talking about this. Again, from my point of view, from a non-mom, I'm being honest. I'm like, if you're a mom, if you've just done that, if you've just had another human being inside you and living off you effectively and coming out of you, take as long as you want, because you know, seriously, I would never judge anyone, but that's me as a non-mom, having a paramount respect for anybody who puts their body through that You've had someone living inside you. For me as a non-mom, as a, you know, an older person, it's like, that's kind of, you know, borderline alien, but you know, I will go with that. You're fine. It's weird, but you've gone through that. You know, why would you expect your body to go back to where it was, you know, before in 3 months? I mean, that's insane. And she, a great influencer who speaks out about that and says, as you were saying, Rebecca, it's a powerful experience. Don't torture yourself. I'm coming back to you, Ems, but you must have, you're what, 12 weeks out of this postpartum?
So I posted on my social media about how I was feeling very, very briefly. I don't post a lot, but when I do, I sort of just honestly say what I'm going through. And I got so many messages back about women going through this, literally the same thing that you just said, Emily, like the clothes, just one tiny part. It's a weird in-between phase. The maternity clothes are too big, but your pre-pregnancy clothes are too small. I feel like I am not myself yet, and I don't know if I ever will be, but there is a pressure, and it's not from anyone in my immediate family. It's not from Adrian. I don't know where this pressure is coming from, to bounce back, and I hate it. And I'm annoyed at myself for allowing that pressure to come onto me, to bounce back. And the stories of, oh, I walked out of hospital in my jeans. And you're like, wow, how? Like, how did you do that? I know women who have walked out of the hospital in their pre-pregnancy jeans. And And I think for me, postpartum, I'm still definitely in postpartum. The drop from being so feeling so beautiful, feeling so amazing, like with this massive stomach, massive by the end of it, absolutely massive, and still feeling amazing, to then suddenly looking at myself in the mirror, and this is not being judgy or being, this is literally just the truth, massive boobs, extremely sore, and that's a whole other podcast. Let's talk about breastfeeding in another podcast. With a stomach that's like a waterbed, kind of a weird shape, with a scar from my previous surgery, and now a new scar with a pouch. I'm wearing net pants, which I love. I mean, anyone, honestly, why do we wear normal pants? Those were the best invention in the world, but they are hideous. So you're wearing these pants, like, you know, like a pork chop in a piece of meat in like that netting thing. That's how it was. With the biggest pad you've ever seen in your life, bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and then you breastfeed and then you bleed more. And I'm just looking in the mirror, bags under my eyes, haven't washed my hair for a while, and I just think, God, that's a really quick, big change from 1 second to the next. Like this glamorous beauty to what I felt like absolute quack. It's paired for me. It was paired with obviously being a new mom and all the amazing things. I'm really not trying to sound like it's not the most amazing thing in the world, because it is. Especially, I wanted to be a mom forever, and losing the first baby was the biggest heartache ever. And so I don't want to sound to anyone listening to this that I'm not grateful. So I just have to put that out there, because I'm so grateful and so blessed. But it does come with the reality of this. So the image, the feeling, I was in agony, like from the C-section. I remember the day before I knew I was going to be discharged from hospital, crying, thinking, how am I going home? How am I going to get in that car? How am I going to climb the stairs? I was in such pain. And miraculously, somehow you do. But yeah, the pain was amazing, like incredible pain. The bleeding, I don't think anyone prepared me for as much. The looking after a baby suddenly while you're still recovering yourself. I was breastfeeding, so it was just me at the beginning until we decided to sort of pump and do a mix and then introduce formula as well, so Adrian can kind of relieve me from some of the feeds. Not sleeping, I didn't sleep from like the night before the surgery all the way to now. So there's all of this, and then there's the emotion and all the
That's
doubt.
what I was going to say.
And
Doubt
like,
and
oh
emotion.
my gosh, just doubt, constant doubt. Should I do this? Is he okay? Is he breathing? Is he this? Should I give him the dummy? Should I switch to a different formula? Oh, there's so many questions constantly. And it's just so tough. Like, but just the physically was, and how you feel, how I feel still as a person, as what's my style, what can I wear? I can't wear anything short because I'm constantly bending with this buggy and I have to pick him up. I can't wear anything that might be too baggy because my boob might come out. I remember once, I actually haven't been brave enough yet to post on my social media the posts I've been wanting to post, because I have an album of photos which are not glamorous. These are all, I didn't really post the glamorous ones when I was pregnant either, because I took loads of my underwear every single day because I was like, oh my God, look at my stomach. But I took postpartum as well, and it's labeled postpartum. And I haven't yet been brave enough to.
It
might be
Mother's
next year.
Day in a couple of.
Oh yeah, well, I know. I hope I'll get brave enough to post it, because it's really, really tough.
But this is what I loved about this woman that we both follow. And
she posted. Yeah.
She
posts so brave.
She just goes out and she does it.
That.
And she really called it out. And you just said about powerful. I love this idea of changing the concept of childbirth, pregnancy, postpartum, from being painful to powerful. Because I can tell you, just listening to you, all of you, because I'm not a parent, because I'm really sitting here saying, good grief, and just in awe, because I haven't gone through that. I haven't gone through the experience of going, okay, that was really painful, let's move on. I'm still at the kind of, you women made a person.
Yeah.
And I do every time I see you. And when I saw you, Max, I'm like, you made this.
Yeah, I do that every day.
You made this. and I, isn't it a shame that we don't take the time, going back to what you were saying, to celebrate that? We could sit here and talk for hours, and I really feel like we could, but I want to just kind of bring the show to an end and I'm going to start with you, Rebecca, and ask you to give us closing thoughts. We will definitely come back and do this again and look into some of these areas in more detail, but closing thoughts, your passion, your drive, what you do, your advice for anyone going through this, facing it, have gone through it.
Okay, so I think you asked me a question in the beginning and I haven't answered it yet. You said, what was it like, going through it personally? How was that question exactly? But you went into motherhood as a midwife. And, going on these birth stories that we've heard so far, for me, I like to say that the most beautiful image in my mind is my first birth, when I held my daughter up. And I just have this image in my head, forever in my head, of this pink shouting little girl. And the most beautiful sound that I've ever heard is my son's cry. It's the first thing that I heard. He wasn't even fully born yet, and he was already screaming. And it's life-changing, and nothing prepares you for it, not even a degree or a master's in midwifery will prepare you for motherhood, because it's something completely different. Postpartum is huge. And again, between first baby and second baby, I addressed that completely differently. Second time around, I'm like, listen, I'm building a nest here. I have snacks. I have body lotion. I have everything that I need to go to the bathroom comfortably. I have games for my toddler to come and sit next to me in bed, and books for her. I'm spending the first 2 weeks in bed, and don't ask me to move from here. And that's what I did. And my friends and family brought over food. I had a freezer packed with food. So yes, if you are pregnant at the moment, my biggest advice would be fill your freezer with food. Ask your friends and family to fill your freezer with food. It's going to be much more useful to you than any baby gear that they could possibly buy. If they could fill your freezer with food, speak to your partner about what you expect from each other in those early days. We're still a bit backwards with, maternity leave, paternity leave, but if you can add to that, if you can pull that, whatever you can get leave-wise, to be there for each other at that time is just essential. Really essential.
Freezer full of food. I'm sorry, ladies, I should have brought around a freezer full of food for you. Ems, your closing thoughts, your words, your wisdoms.
Oh, wow. I think something that's kind of been repeated over and over, and that's kind of coming out, is just really find people that that you can go to, that you can depend on, that are going to support you, even if you think, am I doing everything wrong? And they're there to say, no, you're doing a great job, and even if you're going through traumatic experiences that you've been through, try to find joy through all of it, because we can easily, even just looking back on getting up to the pregnancy, we can easily just become overwhelmed and kind of sink into ourselves and not want to reach out to other people. But seeking that joy, trying to find hope, trying to find peace in all of that moment to guide you through it, wherever you are in your journey to motherhood, or maybe that's not your journey, even if it's something you longed for, or if it's chosen. There's joy we can find in every part of life, and that's something that has carried me through and through my personal faith, from infertility to pregnancy to having the little miracle that we have now. Finding peace in whatever that part of your life looks like for you and for your family.
Max?
I don't know how you haven't cried. I mean, I'm literally like, oh, that was amazing. How am I going to follow that? I have nothing to say. Honestly, I don't know what to say. What should I say, Trudy? Tell me. What would you like me to say?
I want you to say whatever's on your heart, but I would just say I can't tell you how thrilled I am that you had the courage to share your journey right from the very beginning and make this discussion possible. And it fills me with so much joy and respect and awe to see all three of you. But I have to say, Rebecca, in the case of these two ladies personally, just that you have taken that journey and just are so positive about not just the journey, you've taken every negative aspect of it and turned it into positive. So, but you have the last words, Max.
No pressure. Some advice, right? What I'd say.
Anything that comes into your head.
Yeah, I think for me it is sort of similar to what you're saying. It is just goes back to the village, right? It does go back to the village, and no matter what your family situation is, I think for me it's accept the help. Like, because it's easy to say, get help. What if you don't have anyone? Like, but just accept whatever there is. I feel like I'm still struggling with this, having this baby, and then wanting my body to bounce back and wanting my house to be as spotless as it used to be and wanting to be on top of everything and sort of rushing this recovery process, this postpartum period, instead of just allowing myself to sit in it, in the mess, in the laundry, in the everything, the confusion, everything, just accept help. And I think it's about having faith that will come back. You will get back into a routine, into what your standards of living are, and just enjoy each and every stage, because baby's nearly 3 months already. It's just live in that, I think, and accept help. No pride in it, just accept the help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making this possible. And thank the wine.
We're closed. We're closed.
Cut.
Seguendo la strada sommersa di fronte all'isola di Mozia, superando le storiche saline all'interno della riserva orientata dello stagnone di Marsala, dove il vento anima e trasporta, ti troverai tra distese di vigneti e misteriose tracce di antiche civiltà. Luoghi in cui la luce domina il tempo, caricando di calore e di colore la natura e gli uomini. Gli uomini, i nostri uomini. Ci siamo chiesti cosa rendesse davvero speciale tutto questo. In una parola, il carattere. Il carattere di una terra amata e combattuta. Il carattere di chi lavora in vigna e in cantina. Il carattere della famiglia. Il carattere di un frutto. E tutto questo è frutto del nostro carattere.